We are.
Okay, I'm going to ask for motion to move back into open session. Diane, you're muted.
So moved, sorry.
There a
Second.
The motion's been made and second. I'll ask for a roll call vote. Mr. Dakotas,
Yes.
Mrs. Pavo,
Yes.
Mrs. Farnworth,
Yes,
and I vote yes. So we're back in open session. I'm gonna report out discussion was had regarding various legal matters and contracts with NEA and Council 94. And no votes were taken. I'm going to ask for a motion to seal the minutes.
So moved.
second,
And motion's been made and seconded. I'm going to ask for a roll call vote. Mr. Dakotas,
Yes.
Mrs. Pavo,
Yes.
Mrs. Farnworth,
yes,
and I vote yes. So the minutes are sealed. So welcome to our April 13th, 2021 Tiverton School Committee meeting. I'm going to ask everyone to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the
and to the
republic
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Ask for motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Any objection? I'll take that as unanimous. All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Dr. Sanquioni.
if I may, I'd like to, for your consideration, move up under new business items A and B. We have some members of our staff joining us here
Yep.
this evening.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure that out here. Thank you. I'm going to ask for motion to move up items 8A and 8B.
I'll make that motion.
Second,
Any opposed? Take that as unanimous. Going to move to item 8A, THS accreditation update. Dr. Sanquioni and Mr. Ashley.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, and I will turn this over to Principal Ashley and a few of his staff members who are going to speak to you about the accreditation process.
Yes, hi, good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. We're excited to provide an update to the committee about our NEAS accreditation process, and I'm excited. We have our two leading members of our steering committee, Ms. Dowd and Ms. Cusimano, who are going to, in a moment, share the screen and talk a little bit about what NEASC is, what the process is, and where Tiverton High School is in that process.
Good evening. As Mr. Ashley shared, my name is Pamela Dowd, and this is my 6th year at Tiverton High School serving as the school social worker. I want to first thank you for the opportunity to be one of the NEAS coordinators, but also want to thank you for your time this evening. I know I speak for both Lee and I when I say we're both really, really excited for our roles in this process. Dave, you can go to the first slide, please. So I would like to open the presentation with just a brief overview and some history on NEASC. NEASC, or the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, was founded in 1885. The accreditation process is a supportive partnership between member institutions like Tiverton High School and the CPS, or Commission on Public Schools. The Institute and the CPS will work together very closely throughout an ongoing 10-year cycle, and Lee will discuss the 10-year cycle more specific to Tiverton. The accreditation process engages schools in a comprehensive analysis, self-reflection, and planning in the response of the standards of accreditation, which I will discuss more specifically later in the presentation. When an institute is awarded an accreditation, it signifies that the school has met the standards for accreditation at an acceptable level. And not only Are we saying the standards have been met for the accreditation? But it also says that we are committed to maintaining those standards. Continued accreditation is dependent upon a school demonstrating ongoing reflective progress to improve teaching and learning and the support of that teaching and learning.
And before, we're going to be going on to the next slide in a moment. Hi, my name is Lee Cusimano, and I'm the other co-chair of NEASC with Pam. I'm the science department head, and I've been here at Tiverton for 11 years now. Time's going quickly. The good news about doing this process, and we're really excited about, is that the process has changed from the past. In the past, it was kind of like you would get a grade for something, and then at the end of the day, you were accredited or not. And that was kind of a scary process. So the new process now is more of a continuum in which schools are allowed to look within themselves, to analyze what they're doing well, celebrate the successes, and then to look at areas in which they may need more improvement. And that's why we're really excited about this new process. Back to Pam.
So as this slide demonstrates, there are 5 standards of accreditation, which is a change for this year. For this 5 standards of accreditation, each building block that the school must align to. And then we'll talk a little bit more about how we came up with the evidence to show that alignment for each standard. So if you look here at the slide, it's learning culture is standard 1. So basically what we're looking at with the learning culture is our school community providing a safe environment? Do we have written documentation of our core values, our beliefs, and our vision of the graduate? For standard 2 and student learning, are we providing a good, solid education that encourages learning for each and every student? For standard 3, we're looking at professional practices. So how well is our faculty and staff executing our instructional practices and strategies? Standard 4, learning support. Do we have the appropriate systems to support students' learning and well-being? And when we talk about well-being, we're not just talking about the academic piece, we're talking about social, emotional, and medical, and that, you know, we'll have a lot of information from our support staff, librarians, school nurse. And for standard 5, when we're looking at learning resources, does our building, our physical plant, support the delivery of the curriculum, their program, and services?
On this slide is an overview. It's a nice little visual to show how the 10-year cycle goes through its process. Right now, we're in the spring of 2021. We're in the self-reflection stage. This is where all our faculty and staff have a voice in contributing to all our successes and to looking at the areas of improvement. At the completion of the self-reflection process, we'll be generating a report. That report will then be forwarded on to a collaborative group of individuals through NEASC. And that collaborative group of individuals will visit here in the fall. Approximately about 3 or 4 people will be in our school system for about 2.5 days. They'll come into the school and look at our self-reflection report and look at our classrooms and interview various individuals such as parents, teachers, students, even the school committee, and then to compare to see whether that report and what their observations match. They will also make recommendations, also give us praise for the things that we're doing well, and then to come into an agreement as to what things need to be improved. The next part will become a developmental growth plan. That will take about 2 years for our school to diligently work towards those growth plans and those areas of identified need. Then in the 10-year accreditation visit will be 2023. At that time, then we'll have a larger group of folks come into the building for about 4 days. And that could be anywhere to be 6 to 8 individuals that will be coming into our building. And again, walking through classrooms, interviewing folks, and looking to see how well we've progressed on our accreditation commitments. Once we've met with them, and after they've come here for 4 days, then a new revised plan comes up. There'll be progress reports that we'll be giving back to NEASC over a 6-year period. And then a new cycle begins in 2031. So the first question is, where are we now? Well, the first thing we had to do is we develop a steering committee. Pam and I are part of this committee, obviously. But then we also have some 4 rock star people we really wanted to shout out. Ms. Celeste Urban, who is our school psychologist, Mrs. Sarah Cabral, who is our English department head, Ms. Sarah Gray, who is an English teacher here in our building, as well as another English teacher, Shella Gagnon, and they're rock stars. We just wanted to shout them out before we even begin the next slide. In the next slide, you'll see a big question. Where are we now in the process? So as I said, we're in the self-reflection phase. We've met, Pam and I individually went into every department during every department's common planning period. So we can meet one-on-one with our staff and talk with everybody to see if they have any questions, to fully understand the massive role, important role that they're playing in this process, and what type of evidence will be needed by each department. Secondly, the steering committee has been meeting on a regular basis. Every 1 to 2 weeks, we've been meeting and discussing the process and making sure that we're supporting each other during the gathering of evidence. As I said over here, the steering committee is going out throughout the entire school community because the entire school community has a voice in this process. And then the last thing, the steering committee has already started to write the self-reflection report. Next steps. So the next steps is May is going to be a big month. In May, we're going to be sending out surveys. Surveys will go to our parents, surveys will go to our students, and surveys will go out to our faculty. So faculty, parents, and students will have surveys. And all of those 5 standards will be part of that process. They'll report back with things they're finding are successful, areas that they're not clear about, or areas of improvement. We'll gather that information, and then that will also be put into our self-reflection report, which will be completed at the end of this year. Then the school will have a chance to vote on each part of the standards and have a voice of whether we agree where we are, if we're developing, implementing, or having some moving progress in each of the standards. That will be done by September of 2021. And then we're going to be preparing for the fall collaborative conference visit, which will be sometime, I guess, around November. As you can see here, these are the 3 major areas that we're looking at. Our self-reflection report, which we're in the middle of now. We're getting ready for our collaborative conference in fall, and then for the big time show in spring of 2023. And again, Pam and I like to thank you for this opportunity. And does anybody have any questions?
So I'm going to be the first to offer my thanks to Ms. Dowd and Ms. Cusimano and the teachers that have participated. I agree they are all rock stars. I have some, well, I don't have the personal experience. I have some boys that I know who have personal experience, and they're all great teachers. So all of you guys, thank you so much. And I'm really thrilled to see that this is a reflective process that is an opportunity to change for improvement, or an opportunity. So I'm going to open it up without going on any further to members of the committee. Elaine?
I have no questions.
Okay. Mike?
Thank you for presenting. I'm a new school committee member, so part of my learning curve, so I appreciate it. My only question is this something that people step up for and fight to be in line, or is this something that people back away from because it's so much work?
Well, it's got a lot of levels to it, but the NIAS process this year is completely different than it's been ever before. So I think as we went through and explained to our faculty members, because 10 years ago, the workload was tremendous. It isn't exactly a walk in the park, but there is commitment to it. But again, I think folks are beginning to see how it's been streamlined, and really it's more of a great way to really celebrate our successes. And a lot of the work that's coming forward from our faculty has been absolutely exceptional. I think the high school is really, is a fantastic place to teach, but our faculty and staff is doing a fantastic job, and it's going to really show in our report.
All right, thanks. And hats off to you that are volunteering to do that. So that's tremendous. My hat's off. Thank you.
So Mike, I think this is a process that people who are passionate about education get pulled into as if by gravity. That is what I would say. Diane?
Thank you. Just to repeat, because I can't say it enough, for all of you rock stars who are presenting to us this evening, and for those who have also committed to being a part of the steering committee and the overall effort. I do say thank you. One question that came out in your presentation itself, you mentioned that the school will take a vote on your growth plan. Is that the entire faculty, or is it the entire? Does it include everyone in the building? Is it just the faculty? Is it who is that vote going to be made up of?
Yeah, Ms. Farmer, I can just jump in here briefly. The voting process for the standards is the faculty, usually the teachers.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit about what the benefits of being accredited are to Tiverton High School?
It's actually a really great way for everybody to be reflective about their educational practices. And as Dr. Sanquioni says, we have a commitment to giving our community a good, solid, strong education. So when you have a process of this magnitude, it really has an opportunity for folks to have real professional discussions about what's working well, where areas of growth can be, and it just makes our schools that much stronger. And the students actually have a chance to benefit the most from that.
Great, thank you very much.
So Peter or Chris, I don't know if you have any other comments about accreditation. I know we're sort of licensed by RIDE, and they have some sway over, actually a lot of sway over what we do, but can you gloss that a little bit more?
Yeah, you know, as Ms. Cusimano spoke about, the other piece, you know, just with accreditation is we really become part of a broader community across New England of high schools. And there's lots of conversation about how to improve teaching and learning. And so that covers all aspects of that process. And so, you know, we didn't get into the details of the standards this evening, but there are workshops throughout the year held by NEAS. They have an annual conference in December. We also get to our faculty get to kind of do the flip side of this process and get to visit other schools and become members of visiting teams. And it's a wonderful professional development opportunity to learn from other schools. They talk to other teachers, they talk to administrators in other schools, they take back ideas. And so being in that process, and then, you know, it also informs our practice and lets us know kind of areas that we need to focus on. So, you know, for us, we know we want to continue to focus on our expectations and vision of a graduate and how that can be how we can do the best job possible of informing our students and families, and even connecting that to our transcripts, and how we can just continually improve. And so, again, just that broader member of, you know, the NEAS community, you know, across New England.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, Ms. Ashley, I'm glad you mentioned the transcripts because correct me if I'm wrong, but don't most colleges require a student to have or graduate from a accredited high school for them to be accepted?
Yes,
That's critical.
Yes, that's correct. So, yes, absolutely. Yes, thank you. And so, yeah, that's, you know, the fact that Tiverton High School is an accredited high school is critical for all of our graduates, regardless of whether or not they go on to a 2 or 4 year school, even if it's just employment, military, workforce, whatever it might be, is a key factor.
So if I may kind of, I guess, extend it from certainly training programs and medical schools that I'm involved with and hospitals, you know, accreditation is a pretty big deal. So certainly having it is very significant. Having a sort of finding or probation or losing it would be a much bigger deal. So we really do appreciate all the work you guys are taking on and doing this. So I'm going to ask if there's any comments from or questions from our administrators. And Mr. Conley, are you monitoring the public or?
Yes, Dr. Lucken, I am.
Right. So I was going to let the public go first, but let the administrators see if they have any questions or concerns first. Okay, you all look very happy. All right. Anything from the public, Mr. Carnevale?
Not at this time, Dr. Lucken.
Okay. And any other questions or concerns from the committee? Okay, well, again, thank you guys so much. I can't, I guess I'm betraying the fact that I've been through a few accreditations myself. So I know what you're doing. So thank you. All right. So we are now on item 8B, THS prom graduation. We have Mr. Ashley and Mr. William Gerlach, who I have to shout out. I liked your meme there when it was up for a few minutes, and Ms. Morissette. So I'll turn it over to you guys.
Yes, thank you. And I do want to give just one more thanks to the whole Tiverton High School community, the steering committee, and of course, Ms. Cusimano and Ms. Dowd again for their leadership with the NEAS process. So thank you for that. And so now we're going to shift gears to the senior class, the class of 2021, and the all important events of prom and graduation for this year. So Mr. Carnival, I believe I can share my screen in a moment, right, with the presentation?
That is
Great.
correct, yes.
Yes, and I will in a moment introduce our senior class advisor, Ms. Morissette, and our senior class president, Mr. Will Gerlach is here. And so let me get my screen, that presentation up, and then Ms. Morissette, I'll turn it over to you to begin about some of the details of our senior prom.
Thank you, Mr. Ashley. Can you hear me all right?
We can.
Thank you. So before I begin speaking about prom, I kind of just wanted to highlight some of the activities that we have done so far and activities that we have coming up to help homecoming extravaganza, which is something new that we did this year, where students participated in games and activities at school, and the homecoming court was recognized. We did a pumpkin.
I think I keep losing Miss Morissette. Is it just me?
No, that her.
No, I'm losing her also.
No, I think we lost her.
Oh,
Kristen.
hello?
Yep, we're back. You know,
So
you may,
sorry.
for the purposes, Kristen, for the purposes of the presentation, you may want to stop your video because you'll stream better then.
Okay. Is that better?
Yep.
Okay, sorry, where did you last hear me?
We were at homecoming extravaganza, then pumpkin paint, I believe.
Thank you, Will. So we did a pumpkin decorating night around Halloween. In February, we did an ice skating trip to the Alex Zanani ice skating rink in Providence, followed by a brunch back at Tiverton High School. Most recently, we went on a ski trip to Pat's Peak in Henniker, New Hampshire. 41 seniors attended. And the students had a great time taking ski and snowboarding lessons, skiing and snowboarding down the various trails of the mountain, and some even enjoyed snow tubing. And that was a really fun, positive, and successful day for the students involved. Coming up, some activities that we have to look forward to. outdoors with activities such as rock climbing, volleyball, basketball, soccer, tennis, swimming, kayaking, and more. There'll be a full breakfast, a cookout lunch, and an ice cream sundae bar before returning back to the high school. We also have a car parade coming up in June as well, where students will dress in their caps and gowns and drive by the elementary schools in Tiverton Middle School and be recognized by students and teachers from those schools. And of course, we have graduation and prom. And now I'd like to speak a little bit about the prom specifically. So Mr. Carnevale, if we could have the next slide, that would be tremendous. Thank you so much. So as you know, the pandemic has impacted everyone, especially our students, and we are committed to doing everything possible to provide our class with a fun and safe senior prom and graduation. So at the prom, all COVID safety protocols will be followed. The students will be organized into pods based on their table seating. Prior to prom day, all students that are participating will have to participate in asymptomatic
Ms. Morissette, I think we're losing you.
These are just some of the precautions that we are taking. Wouldn't mind switching slide, Mr. Carnevale? Thank you. So the prom is going to be held on June 17th at the Marriott in Newport, Rhode Island. It will take place from 7 to 10 p.m. Students will
We keep losing Miss Morissette.
Yeah.
I don't know if perhaps Mr. Gerlach
that those
would
scenes
be.
If you'd like me to, is my connection better? Because I could read the slides if need be.
Miss Morissette, you keep cutting out. We're missing much of your presentation.
going to be doing small separate dance floors for the students in order to make this pod system successful. Students within the same table or pod will take pictures together in a separate room. There'll be a plated meal, so there's no buffet, just to keep things as safe as possible. And throughout the night, we'll have activities such as trivia, games, video messages from teachers, and giveaways for the students. So we're really, really excited about the prom, and we're happy to offer this opportunity to our seniors so that they can have, one last memorable night with their classmates. And at this time, I'd like to give Will the opportunity to speak from a student voice about all of these opportunities for the end of senior year. So Will?
Hello, if you guys, I know I've been introduced several times, but if you guys don't know me, my name is Will Gerlach. I am the senior class president this year, and I'm gonna try to not reiterate what Ms. Morissette has already said. She's done a great job, despite the mic not cooperating with her. But I think that Tiverton High School is in a really unique position because we are such a small community, and that we have been able to do schools. And I think at the point it's all about capitalizing and all about just I guess trying to make this, like Ms. Morissette said, as memorable and as just, I guess, normal as possible. Because, and I mean, I can speak on the Marriott space easily. I believe it is fit to accommodate 200 people, and there's no way we will have 200 people at this year's prom. I know personally from speaking to other students, everyone has been really, really enthused with the amount of stuff that we've been able to do. And we're just really, really hoping that our numbers for senior class trip that is coming up and the prom are able to increase. And we're just really trying to get this out to as many students as possible. Is there anything else that you guys would like me to cover?
Great, thank you, Will. I'm going to open up the floor to questions from the committee. Diane?
Hey, I'm just thrilled you guys are going to have a prom. Congratulations. That's really great news. And hearing some of the activities that have been ongoing, I will admit that much of it was new to me. And so I'm very happy to see that, you know, you guys have all managed to get a lot of great activities throughout the year. And you guys will remember this well beyond your high school days. And, you know, again, just so thrilled that we're inching back toward normalcy, and you guys get to be the first beneficiaries of that. So kudos.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Elaine?
I think that we got some good information. I have no questions.
Mike?
Have a great time. I had my prom 31 years ago in Newport. Kudos to you guys for getting this together.
Thank you.
You know, I heard about that, Mike, but I didn't think I would bring it up.
1990.
I didn't think anybody would bring it up, but you did. All right. So any questions from the public, Mr. Carnevale?
Not at this time, Dr. Larkin.
Okay. And any questions from our administrators? All right. Thank you guys both for all the hard work. And I'm sure, you know, a lot of cooperation from your classmates and other faculty. So we also talking about graduation or, okay.
Yes.
So, Ashley?
Yeah, I'll go back to the slides in a moment. I just want to, again, I want to thank Mr. Gerlach, Ms. Morissette, our senior class leaders here for really, really working hard. I can't stress enough, there was a lot of behind the scenes work in planning those details, talking to the Marriott, visiting the Marriott, taking photos, looking at the state guidelines. So there's more there. I really appreciate them. They're doing everything they can, as they said, to make it a fun, memorable experience for our seniors. So great job, guys. Thank you. All right, so I will share the slides again to talk about our plans for graduation for the senior class and get going here. All right. So we are incredibly excited. So just in less than the last week, the state of Rhode Island updated their guidance for graduation ceremonies, and we are planning our outdoor graduation for Friday night, June 11th at 6 p.m. On the upper field. We are setting a rain date, so that's new for us this year. We really want to stress the idea of celebrating together as a whole class. And so instead of setting the alternative as indoors, we want to keep everybody together celebrating. And so we're setting the rain date of the next day, Saturday, the 12th at 1 p.m. Also on the upper field. And right now, this is not officially set. We're waiting on the final approval, but we believe, based on the new updated guidance, we can have up to 5 guests for each graduate. Again, all seated on the upper field. We're really excited about being able to expand the guest size there. And so now we get into some of the details of planning for the actual ceremony and arrival of the graduation. So all guests and graduate will be screened similar to an attestation form that we do daily for a school day, just for any COVID symptoms. The guests and the graduates will be required to wear face masks throughout the ceremony, even though it is outside, and that is coming from the guidance from the state. However, we did get the okay for the graduates to remove their masks for the pictures. We know that's a critical photo there. So again, they can remove their masks for the photo. Looking ahead to kind of the seating arrangements right now, again, looking at this kind of 5 guests per graduate, we're looking at those 5 guests as kind of almost like a mini family pod, and keeping those guests seated relatively close, but then having the 6 feet separation between those 5 guests and the next 5 guests. They'll have assigned seats. The graduates themselves will be seated 3 feet apart. And per the state guidance, we're not allowed to do the direct handoff on the diplomas hand to hand, but there are some alternatives there about still recognizing that special moment of the diploma handout. And so we're looking at those. But the diploma presentations themselves will be live streamed, similar to how we've done in the past in terms of having the camera focused and centered right on the stage as each graduate walks up. And then again, per state guidance, we need to think about the after graduation ceremony and just having that staggered release so that we don't want everybody egressing the upper field all at the same time. And so there'll be kind of over a few minutes here, having each segment of the field exit in a safe and orderly manner, again, just so we can prevent any of the buildup. But again, we're just really, really excited to be able to plan an outdoor graduation with all of our graduates together. Mr. Gerlach, our senior class, was really clear that this was something critically important to them. And obviously we believe so too. And so we're really looking forward to planning the event and really the entire senior graduation season. And more, we know it's not going to be quite the same as pre-COVID, but there's lots of fun events we're planning, and we're going to be able to have our graduation practices that second week of June leading up to graduation, really building up the momentum and getting excited for graduation on Friday, June 11th. And I present here with a thank you to the committee, but as I told the graduates recently in an assembly, I'm calling it now that it's going to be sunny and 72 degrees at exactly 6 p.m. on Friday, June 11th. And so we're really looking forward to the night.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ashley and Ms. Morissette, Mr. Gerlach. I appreciate all your efforts and all the people that are working with you. I'm going to open it up to questions from the committee. Elaine?
It sounds exciting. A lot of preparation and planning has gone into it, and I look forward to graduation.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dakotas?
No, again, kudos to the planning that was put into this, and I'm couldn't be any happier than have as normal a graduation as possible. So let's bring on the 70-degree weather and the sunshine. Let's get it on. Good job.
Ms. Farnworth?
All I can say, I've been reading through. I know the graduation's been planned outside for probably a couple of weeks now, but to hear that the number of guests is hopefully going to increase from 2 to 5 is a really good thing. I think a lot of families are going to be very happy about that. And as the days continue to pass, I'm hoping for even more signs of this return to normalcy for us all, especially for these graduates.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the public, Mr. Cottervalley?
No questions right now. Thank you.
And any questions from any of our administrators? Okay, again, thank you both for all your work. And yeah, we've been sort of lucky so far with weather. Why can't we be lucky again? All right. That completes item 8B. Now back to item 7A, the FY22 budget update. Dr. Sanchioni. You're muted, Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and we're going to share a presentation with you just to update you on some of the happenings that directly impact our FY22 budget. All right, so a presentation you're familiar with, but some new information that's been included here. You can advance the slide. Numbers that you're familiar with. Our budget number is 33 and I'll speak in round terms, 33.9 to provide a level service, which just brings back everyone we currently employ. The new number I've added in there, which was identified as the amount that we need from the town to achieve that 33.9 million, which is the $27.2 million amount, and the rest is made up of state aid. Moving forward, this is the new information that I want to provide the committee. You're aware of the money that we've received from the federal government, at least the first two. So the first amount, and you can see there, I've labeled it number one, the $265,978, and that's being used in our FY21 budget. And that is for COVID mitigation. So if you could advance one slide. You've seen this chart several times now. So we've spent $550,969 to open our schools and to keep our schools open since October 1st, when we've had everyone back. And you can see all the items that are on here. It was great to receive. And if you go back a slide now, the 265, it certainly helped with that 550, but in essence, we're about $300,000 in the red for that. And that $300,000 was made up by taking money from other accounts, school accounts, maintenance accounts, things of that were already depleted from last year. We felt it was best to invest in our schools to make them as safe as possible. And certainly that has paid off with our school system being open in full since October. The next two amounts of money I want to speak to, ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. We made you aware of the ESSER 2 amount, $763,284. And we expect to use that in FY22, next year. And the amount that I'm making you aware of this evening, and it's an amount we had predicted, but now we know that it's official, is ESSER 3, which is $1.7 million. And we expect to use that again in FY22. So in essence, we've received $2.7 million in one-time funds. Now, as you see, it's outlined on the chart here. We're still waiting pending guidance on both ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. And if you could advance a couple slides now. While waiting to figure out what Rhode Island will put as the requirements for that money, I've been able to speak to some superintendent colleagues in other states, specifically New Jersey, New York, and Virginia, and they may be aware of their state's requirements. And I can't imagine that Rhode Island will differ much. There may be some small things, but what I'm learning is that 20% of that money needs to be dedicated to learning loss. And specifically, they're defining that as you need to start providing summer programs and tutoring. And 20% of that amount is almost $500,000. So that's a lot of summer programming and tutoring that we can provide. Currently, we've already put in place tutoring at the high school and middle school level, evening tutoring at 6 o'clock in the evening. We've targeted kids who are at risk. Both Principal Craven and Principal Ashley have done an excellent job identifying kids that we hope we can salvage, some seniors that actually can get them to graduation and so forth. So we put that in place as a small offset on this, and we'll certainly are in the planning stages for some significant summer opportunities for our students. We also know that the ESSER funds can be used for curriculum development. Over the last 2 years, our staff has been working diligently on choosing and adopting a new math curriculum, grades 5 through 12. We never thought we could realize the dream of implementing that. It's certainly very needed with new curriculum that's connected to the Common Core, to the SAT, teaching the skills that our students need. So it may be a recommendation that we use some of this revenue to develop that curriculum. We know we can use this money, again, I'm predicting we can use this money for teacher training. We can use it for social and emotional support and programs, again, for anything needed for COVID mitigation and staffing to address learning loss. And the difficult part of this, and if you could go back 2 slides to the amounts, is we got $2.7 million. And a phrase that Ms. Roderick and I almost live and die by with federal funding is supplant and supplement. And typically, federal funds cannot supplant a local budget. They can only be used to supplement. And everything we're hearing right now is leading us to believe that that is going to be one of the major guidelines. And so under those circumstances, you know, we get back to that $33.9 million budget, which prevents any layoffs. And if we were not to achieve that, we have the 2.7 million, yet we can't use that to preserve our staff. And I think this is going to be a hard thing, and it's probably a topic that I want to continue to represent to the committee and to the community so people understand that. Now, if you go back a couple slides in here and go forward a couple slides, excuse me. Right there, thank you. Nope, back one, thank you. You can see that we could add staffing. For example, we could hire a social worker to do a social and emotional support. Now, we know this is one-time money, so if we were to hire someone, it would be for a year, maybe 2 years. We could hire staff to address learning loss, what they're defining as math tutors, reading tutors, and things of that nature. We could, again, consider that. We know that the money is 1-2 years at most, so it's a position we add that we know we're eventually going to eliminate. It may be a way to preserve other staff members who may be losing their jobs in other places. So there's a lot more to be understood about this and to make good decisions on how Tiverton can best use this money to support our students and to support our staff. But right now, it's not a solution to our budget problem. We still need to achieve what I would recommend to the school committee is that $33.9 million by getting that amount on the budget through on the ballot through, and if you can move forward a slide, getting that number on the ballot for the FTR on July 17th so that our community can evaluate that and hopefully make a good decision to support our schools. You know that we're out there working diligently right now with both our PTOs and our staff to make sure they understand this. And as we move into mid-July and June, we'll start taking this to the community as a whole. Timing is everything, right? We want to get it as close to July 17th as possible so people remember the importance of this request, the impact if we don't have this request. And if you go forward one more slide. Again, just reminding the committee that the impact if we didn't achieve our budget, and again, I don't know what the delta is going to be between the 33.9 and what maybe the budget committee is going to recommend. But as soon as we get that understand, we can know that whatever that difference is, what the impact is going to be on us, which again, could be the layoff of up to 20 staff members, which would be devastating. As you know, we laid off 24.2 members last year, or the other options there that are certainly very unpalatable, the closing of a school or tuitioning students. So we still have a lot more to learn before we make these decisions. There's a lot of great news in receiving money from the federal government. You know, it'd be envious if Tiverton could achieve their budget and use this money like every other district's using, which is to augment what we're doing, to be able to find new opportunities, different opportunities for our students who have had learning loss or experiencing social emotional needs by putting in new programs to help them, not using it to supplant our budget, which again, we're thinking we won't be able to, but we're still waiting to get that final guidance. So the update is we've received our ESSA 3 amount. That's the new number that you hadn't been presented before. And we'll continue to evaluate that for the district. And I'll pause there and answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Peter. I'm going to open it up to questions from the committee first. Mike, you want to go first?
I think just continuing to stress that although we're getting funds from the government, those funds are intended or should be intended for one-time usage, as Dr. Sanchioni has bulleted, and want to make sure the public knows, just like when I was on the budget committee, I hate to be a broken record, we don't want to use that for everyday operating expenses. So we still need to just keep honing in on what we need for that budget every single time. That number hasn't changed, won't change. So just hope we get the support of the budget committee and the public.
Thanks, Mike. Ms. Farnworth?
Sure. Couple questions. On, I know you mentioned ESSER 2, we would, and ESSER 3, we would be expecting to expend those funds in 22. Is that the instruction from the government, or is there a longer time frame that we would be allowed to expend those funds?
Great question. Yes, we will have the latitude to extend this, I believe, up until into FY '23. And is Ms. Roderick with us? She is. I don't, Amy, if you heard anything beyond FY '23, I haven't.
I haven't heard anything beyond 23, but the intent that I'm hearing from other RIASBO members is that it is to sort of fill the gaps created by the pandemic over the course of the next couple of years, so 22 and 23.
Okay. And I mean, all the discussion now talking about, you know, I know I read in the law itself that 20% is to be dedicated to learning loss. That was very clear. The rest of it was still a little bit fuzzy. When has Wright indicated when they are going to come down with what the standards will be?
Peter, I can answer that if you'd like.
Yeah, I think our answer is the same. So go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So again, based on our weekly meeting with RIASBO and the Director of Finance at RIDE on Thursday, they are currently working on the ESSER 2 application for us to fill out in Acela grants. And they're expecting that to drop by the end of this month. And no word yet on ESSER 3.
Okay. I think it's important for us to remember that without guidance, we really have no idea how we can spend it, really. You know, aside from this 20% that, you know, hopefully we'll be able to start putting in some programs this summer, as you mentioned. The rest of it is still very much up in the air as to what we will be allowed to spend this on. And, you know, to everyone else's point, it's one-time money. This is not, it would be foolhardy of us to even give any consideration to using this as as extra operational funds just for continuing to keep our heads above water. So.
And to further that, Mrs. Farnworth, so these are, to make it clear for those watching, these are grants for which we have to apply, and the dollar amount they've provided is the maximum that we can receive.
And this is, we have to justify it.
And we have to justify it, correct. And it has to be approved. We have to come up with the spending plan, enter it in Acela grants, and it has to be approved programmatically and fiscally by RIDE. And then we can submit cost reimbursement.
Has there been any mention of using any of these funds for infrastructure?
I can answer that, only that I, again, have heard this from colleagues in other states that has been approved. If you can justify it through COVID mitigation. So certainly air exchange, things of making schools safer across the board. So I would expect Rhode Island will follow suit there.
Okay, thank you very much. That's important to note. Especially as the town considers this coming year's budget. You know, there's been discussion on how the schools are getting this large sum of money that, you know, we'll be able to use however we wish, and that includes capital requests. And I guess the answer is, unless it's related to COVID, the answer is probably going to be no.
Yeah, I guess it's wait and see.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, Elaine?
Yes, Amy, you just stated the amounts of the maximum we may receive, but not written in stone. We could receive less. Am I understanding you correctly?
In theory, we're certainly going to write our application to utilize the full allotment. But, you know, again, where we have to apply for it and it gets programmatically reviewed, there may be some back and forth and tweaking to get to the top amount. We won't be getting, my point to that was, we won't be getting any more than what's been allocated.
Okay. Okay, and I do think it's important that we have to keep repeating that this is 1 year only. These funds aren't going to keep coming down the pike.
That's correct.
People in town citizens have to realize this, that this isn't a windfall that we're going to receive every year.
Correct.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
So I guess I have one question that I think I know the answer to, but I think this is a question that people are going to ask. So one is presumably we will be made whole for the $550,000 that we spent in COVID mitigation through, ESSER 1, 2, and 3. Is that a fair assumption?
That is not a fair assumption.
Oh,
That
good.
money we received, the 265 was applied to FY21. It offset the 550. We made up the difference in our operating budget. The rest of those funds are going to be used in FY22. So we will bring in the FY21 budget balanced as we're required to do, but it's not going to make up that extra 300,000 that we spent.
Okay, so there's no way of backfilling prior expenses such as the one-to-one or anything like that?
Not that we're aware of yet. When we get the specific application, if there are elements to that, we can address it then. But right now, there's no indication for provision of that nature.
Okay, well, and I guess that's a stalemate because we don't really know yet what the guidance is going to be. I assume that the level of detail will be needed that we'll need to provide in the application will be substantial. And I'm sure we're up to it. All right. I guess that stops all my questions dead in their tracks. Any questions from the public, Mr. Carnevale?
There are no questions at this time.
Oh, there's Mrs. Delcourt. Sorry. How about to you?
Not at this time, Dr. Larkin.
People kind of come in and out of Zoom like angels or fairies or devils or something. All right. And any questions from any of our administrators? Okay. Not to leave that topic just yet. Do we have a sense? We need to sort of figure out what the calendar is backing out from the 17th. Do we have those dates somewhere? I know the town clerk must be able to provide them.
Dr. Larkin, they're in our package.
They're in your packet.
You're going to think I didn't look at this package, but I did.
Really?
Yeah. I must have gotten.
It's toward the beginning.
They're there, 7A, I think it is, isn't it?
7A.
Yep, 7A, it's there.
Oh, well, you know what happens is they come on their side and then I have to go like that.
Oh.
All right. All right, so we should really be readdressing this topic at next meeting. All right, any other questions?
Just to make it clear, Dr. Larkin, our next deadline is May 15th.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. Okay. Anything else on this topic? All right, I'm going to move on to our next agenda item, which is item 7B, discussion possible vote resolution. Act allows school committee to add items to their agenda for the purpose of discussion only without having to publish notice of the additional items. Mr. Dakotas?
Thank you, Chairman. So we discussed this last time. Dr. Sanquioni has proposed or helped draft this resolution, which I appreciate. The resolution states, whereas H5485 is an act created by Representative John Edwards, who represents Tiverton, and whereas H5485 will allow the Tiverton School Committee to add items to their agenda for the purpose of discussion only without having to publish notice of the additional items. Resolved that the Tiverton School Committee supports H5485, and be it further resolved that the Tiverton School Committee encourages the Rhode Island legislature to enact H 5485, signed Dr. Jerome Larkin, Diane Farnworth, Deb Palish, Elaine Pavo, and Michael Dakotas. So in front of us tonight, we have this resolution's been drafted, and open it for discussion, I guess.
I'm going to ask for a resolution to approve, or a motion to approve the resolution.
I'll make that motion, please.
I'll second.
Okay, so I'll open it up to discussion. Ms. Farnworth?
I apologize for not acting quicker. I was actually going to ask if we could continue this so that I can work with Mr. Dakotas and Dr. Sanquioni on the format of the resolution. Typically, resolutions would have the town of Tiverton School Committee as its header. There wouldn't be any mention of the presentation or the listing of all the members. And I think in last night's town council meeting, actually, they had intended to pass the same resolution. They ended up tabling it because they had, I think, a paperwork error. But I'm wondering, Mike, if you wouldn't mind, if we could wait to see what the town council has and pretty much just copy it, put the school committee information on it, and have the same exact language, if that would make sense.
Yes, and actually, Dr. Sanquioni and I heard from the town clerk, so let's make sure we have the same verbiage or whatever we need for the town and make sure it's done right. So I have no problem with that.
Okay.
So
I do apologize for not speaking up quickly.
Okay, so the motion's been made. Ms. Pava, would you care to withdraw the motion?
I'll withdraw my motion, please.
Okay, and then ask for a motion to table this matter.
Motion to table this item.
Second,
I'll second.
any opposed? I'll take that as unanimous. All right, thank you, Mike, for continuing to work on this.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Well, thank you to Dr. Sanquioni. He's helping me with it. So we'll get it and we'll get it done.
Okay, great. Next is an item 8C, Right to Read Act. Ms. Donnelly Roach.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to talk a little bit about this evening. As you may know, the Right to Read Act was passed by our state legislature back in 2019 and came into effect this year. Trying to close that, sorry. The legislation requires all of us as districts to train educators in the science of reading. And so I think it's important context to just note that the Right to Read project is part of a national advocacy organization and connects very closely to empirical research from the International Dyslexia Association. It focuses on the structure of reading and the importance of teaching reading with the goal of improving the teaching of reading. For quite some time, the practices we've had have all been around what works for most kids, for 75–85% of learners. And then there's been a separate research base and separate set of practices for students with language-based or specific learning disabilities. And so the goal of this act and the advocacy across the country is to really merge and integrate the two bodies of work. And the goal would be to front load what we know works for all kids to reduce the need for remediation. I won't go into too much depth, but it's important, of course, to know that much of what we're teaching and what we hope to teach through this act and through the advocacy of many of the educators in the district and across the country is around the explicit and systematic teaching of things to ensure that all teachers really know the complexities involved in the science of reading. And so you can take, and some of our teachers have taken master's degrees in this, and certainly it's complex. I think what's important to note is in this infographic, which is from Dr. Scarborough, almost actually over 20 years ago, in that second body of work, talks about how the lower and upper strands and the components of word recognition weave together as word recognition becomes more accurate and more fluent for students. It combines with all the components of language, understanding, and expression to really weave together. And our brain has a lot to do as we become skilled readers. So the Right to Read Act really requires us as a district and all districts in our state to train teachers in the complexities of reading. It divides teachers into two groups, and RIDE is in the process of vetting trainers. So only those approved by our Department of Ed can be used to do the training. Various providers of professional development have to apply to be vetted and approved. And we are in a pretty good place in terms of understanding and implementing what this law requires as a district. There's a lot that the law does require in addition to the training. There's a commission underway with the legislature looking at sort of learning lab schools around teaching folks who have learning disabilities. There's higher ed requirements. And you can see the third and fourth bullets are around our requirements. So teachers who are primary teachers of reading, all of our elementary educators, all of our special educators, and all of our reading specialists and English as a second language specialists will need to be trained in up to 85 hours of training, pretty significant, and then can be eligible to receive an endorsement as a dyslexia or literacy endorsed teacher. And that is part and parcel of this regulation. The rest of us have to be trained and exhibit an awareness level, which we think is about 8 to 10 hours of training. So where does Tiverton stand? We're in a pretty good place. We have a high quality, scientifically based program for early literacy. It's now across the board in grades K to 3, and it's the Wilson language program called Foundations. There was a need for this here in Tiverton. It was apparent, and 5-6 years ago, you'll recall, I think the majority of the members of the current committee were involved in the advocacy for full day K, and this was a part of what we brought when we moved to full day K. So we started working on this then, and we now have this multisensory hands-on way to learn K to 3. We also have provided really high quality professional learning from Wilson language for all of the teachers. We moved up a grade each year in a very systematic way. And so all teachers, a cohort of teachers, have been trained in Wilson Foundations, which is an all kid program, and they've been trained each year. So now K to 3, we have all teachers trained, and our current third graders are the first district-wide cohort to have been trained in this and have received this all the way through. So we're in a good place there. All of our teachers have some basic training. It doesn't quite qualify for the proficiency level, and Wilson is not yet endorsed by our Department of Ed, but they do anticipate becoming endorsed. As you know, we also have really high quality supplemental supports for the science of reading and for supporting all learners to read. Right now this year, we have reading specialists and preschool educators already enrolled in LETTERS training, which stands for the Language Essentials of Reading and Spelling for teachers, teachers of reading and spelling, and very high quality, very intense. You can see the hours there that these teachers are engaged in. Ms. Wardell is a leader in this work as well. And our preschool educators and our elementary reading specialists are all engaged in this work. We will need to continue to refine the way we use our literacy data and the way we look at that data. And our reading specialists are leading the charge in terms of looking at how we can refine a specific aspect of early literacy called phonological awareness. We also may be able to develop some in-house trainers to really support and be efficient about how we do the training. So we're hopeful that our specialists will all be trained by the end of next year. Mrs. Krager is working on that as well, using vetted providers of PD. And then down the road, our general ed classroom teachers would be trained as well in that proficiency level. There will be developed by our state online modules, 8 to 10 hours of content, and that would be available to the rest of the educators who need more of an awareness level of training. And we're hopeful that we can get that done either in 22, 23 or the following year, which would be in compliance with the law. So I'm happy to take any questions. I do want to just make sure that we absolutely take a minute to thank all of the folks who have been working on this, and really especially thank the kindergarten teachers, the first grade teachers, and our elementary teachers, our elementary reading specialists who have been advocates for this work and who are making this happen and already on board before it became legislation. So while some districts are quite worried about this, I'm really pleased that in Tiverton, we've got the high quality early literacy programming, and we're well on our way to honor these expectations and make sure we're teaching all kids right from the start so that we can avoid any or most need for remediation down the road. Happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you very much, Amy. I'm going to open up the floor to questions from the committee. Ms. Pava?
I have nothing. Thank you.
Mr. Dakotas?
I don't either. Thank you very much.
And Ms. Farnworth?
No questions, just, sincere thanks and recognition of the fact that I'm glad I'm an accountant. It's amazing how, going back to the reading rope, how twisted learning really is, right? It's definitely not a black and white situation, and it's definitely not straight lines in any way, shape, or form. So thank you very much. Excellent presentation.
Yeah, again, thanks, Amy, and thanks to all the collaborators you have across the district and in the region. We really appreciate all your hard work. And, this is one of the fundamental thrusts of trying to improve the district and trying to improve our reading and making sure our students have every opportunity they deserve. So really, again, thank you very much. I'm going to open up the floor. Any questions from our administrators? And any questions from the public, Ms. Delcourt?
Not at this time, Dr. Larkin.
Okay, thank you. So I believe that ends new business. We are now on item 9, announcements, scheduled meetings, reports. We have a meeting on April 27th and a meeting on May 11th. The only stated agenda item right now for April 27th is our RIDE 5-year plan update. We'll be talking, I'm sure, about the budget, and I'm sure about ESSER money. Is there anything else anybody needs to address on the 27th?
Dr. Sanquioni, as part of that presentation for the 5-year plan, will there also be discussion of RGB's work that they've been doing in our schools?
Yeah, so I'm going to be
gathering information.
I'm going to be co-presenting with RBG that night.
Thank you.
So we have to have a capital plan, but we also have a 5-year plan. They're different, although I'm sure one can be part of the other. Meaning, I guess that the capital plan can certainly be part of the 5-year plan. Do I have that right, Peter?
The capital plan feeds into the 5-year plan, and the 5-year plan not only addresses capital needs, but it also has to have an educational vision to
Right.
it, which is some of the sessions that are being conducted. You know, for example, at the high school, looking at that library and turning it into a 21st century media center would be a long-term goal for the district. And as the school committee is aware, we get it on the 5-year plan. Doesn't mean, you know, we're held to it by any means, but if we ever wanted to then execute an item on there, it encourages us, it makes us available for reimbursement from RIDE. So that's the advantage of having the 5-year plan.
For capital, and I guess that I've always thought of that as more as bricks and mortar, not
Well, so the 5-year plan is both. It will have all our capital items on it.
right.
Matter of fact, RGB is sending engineers to our district on Friday to assess all of our systems in all 5 of our schools. If they find that there's need there at all, it'll feed in, it'll come off it'll be on our capital plan, and it will be on our 5-year plan, along with the educational vision type thing. So RIDE wants both. They
Right.
want to know what your
Yeah,
needs are. Okay.
All right, yeah. You know, I think it'd be a good idea to at least look at the 4 domains that we had in our prior 5-year plan as well.
Yeah.
And maybe we can, not necessarily, well, I guess if people want it, they can have the whole report, but I think a quick summary of, I'm pretty sure it was 4 different domains, which I think largely we've accomplished. But maybe, if we haven't, then maybe some of those should be brought forward into the next 5-year plan. Okay. Any other agenda items or questions about agenda from the committee? All right. Well, we have not heard yet from our friends on the budget committee, our friend, I should say, on the budget committee about when they want us to meet with them again. Peter?
I have not heard. We're not invited to any meetings. I have not seen their agenda, so I'm not.
Okay. All right.
Although they have requested some information from me specifically, one person has, so we kind of keep going back and forth on what we have available and so forth, so.
In
fact, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to forward that request to all members of the school committee tomorrow. I'd love to hear your feedback on what our requirements or what you feel our requirements should be to address this.
Okay. Sure, I'll be happy to look at that.
I think that's a great idea. We're not going to operate in a vacuum.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Make that motion.
I'll second it.
Any opposed? I'll take that as unanimous, and we